She married the man who destroyed her family, and America couldn't stop arguing about whether she was a traitor or a hero. The headlines exploded, the public divided, and beneath the noise stood a woman whose life had just been rewritten by one signature. Her choices were questioned, her motives dissected, yet the truth behind her decision was far more heartbreaking, and far more dangerous, than anyone dared to imagine. Hello everyone, and welcome to Vale of Hearts, a place where love finds its way through the quietest corners of the soul. And today, let's listen to the story of a woman forced into a marriage that began as a transaction, but ended as something far more powerful. They're selling her family's legacy by the pound, and Lena Ardent can't do a damn thing to stop it. The auctioneer's voice cracked like a whip through the grand hall, each announcement slicing deeper into Lena's chest. Dozens of buyers filled the room, investors, corporate sharks, opportunists all circling with predatory smiles, as the assets of Ardent Pharma, once one of Australian city's proudest medical giants, were dismantled piece by piece. Stainless steel reactors. Patented research equipment. Entire departments that had taken decades to build. All going to the highest bidder. Lena stood in the back, still as a statue. Her fingers trembled despite her clenched fists. This wasn't just a corporate liquidation, this was an execution. And she was being forced to watch every blow. Only yesterday, the Ardent name had meant something. Innovation. Integrity. A promise to heal. Today, it was a stain being scrubbed off the map by ruthless efficiency. And all of it, because of one man. Dr. Adrian Vale. CEO of Helix Medical Group. The brilliant, merciless strategist who had quietly bought up Ardent debt, crushed their stock, and cornered them into bankruptcy with the ease of a seasoned predator. No mercy. No hesitation. A man who saw weakness the way surgeons saw tumors, something to be removed with precision. Lena hated him. But hatred did nothing to stop the hammer from falling. Lot 46, Ardent Research Laboratory, full suite, starting bid at, beside her, a sharp gasp. Her father, Victor Ardent, swayed, his face pale, one hand clawing at his chest. In the swirl of murmurs and camera clicks, Lena lunged forward just in time to catch him. Dad, look at me. Dad. Security rushed in. Someone called emergency services. But all Lena could hear was her father's strained breathing as he clutched her hand, his eyes clouded with humiliation and pain. Hours later, the sterile white of Australian General Hospital swallowed her whole. Machines beeped in steady rhythms beside Victor's bed, a cruel reminder of how fragile everything had become in just one day. The doctor's voice was clinical, apologetic, almost rehearsed. The heart attack wasn't fatal, but his condition is critical. He needs long-term care, specialized treatment, and immediate surgery. Then came the blow that broke her, your family insurance, the doctor hesitated. It was tied to the company. It's no longer active. No coverage. No savings. Nothing left. Lena stepped into the dim hallway, chest tight, tears burning the corners of her eyes. She pressed her palms against her face, breathing unevenly. Everything felt like it was collapsing, her family, her legacy, her hopes for a future that wasn't defined by loss. Then came the click of expensive shoes. A man in a charcoal gray suit approached, posture rigid, expression unreadable. His tie pin gleamed like cold metal. Miss Ardent, he said smoothly, my name is Jonathan Pike. I represent Dr. Adrian Vale. Her entire body stiffened. Of all people, he sent a lawyer. What could he possibly want now? Lena's voice was sharp, almost shaking. Hasn't he taken enough? The lawyer didn't flinch. He opened a leather briefcase and slid a thick document folder toward her. Dr. Vale is prepared to offer a complete resolution of your financial situation, he said. He will absorb every remaining Ardent debt. He will personally fund your father's full medical treatment, including surgery, rehabilitation, and private specialists. Lena stared, breath caught somewhere between disbelief and dread. Why? The word escaped her before she could stop it. Jonathan Pike's gaze didn't waver. He has one condition. The hallway felt colder. Quieter. Almost suffocating. What condition? She whispered. He turned the contract toward her. The final page bore a simple title, Union Agreement. Her eyes narrowed. This is a marriage contract. Yes, Pike replied calmly. Dr. Vale wishes to marry you. Lena's stomach dropped. For a moment, she could only stare at the paper, feeling the weight of every word pressing against her chest. It didn't make sense. Why her? Why marriage? He had destroyed her family. Broken her father. Shattered everything she had ever known. And now he wanted to own her too? Her hands curled into fists. You expect me to marry the man who ruined my life? Her voice trembled with rage. Is this some kind of sick joke? No joke, the lawyer replied. It is a binding offer. And the only one that can save your father. That last sentence hit with brutal clarity. Her father's pale, fragile face flashed in her mind. His hand gripping hers. His voice begging her not to give up. She swallowed hard, every part of her screaming in protest. But the alternative was losing him. With a breath that tasted like defeat, Lena reached for the pen. Her fingers shook violently as she signed her name, each letter carving a wound she would never forget. The moment the ink dried, she pushed the papers back. The lawyer nodded, closed the folder, and simply said, "Welcome to Helix." Lena didn't answer. She stood still, eyes cold, heart hollow. But in her silence, a vow was born. "Adrian Vale took everything from me," she whispered to herself, voice low and trembling. "Fine. I'll marry him. I'll smile for his cameras. I'll walk into his empire," she lifted her chin, eyes burning with quiet fire. "And I will bring him down from the inside." For the rest of that night, Lena Ardent didn't sleep, not truly. Even when exhaustion pressed her eyes shut, her mind refused to drift anywhere except the cold reality she had just signed herself into. A marriage contract. A man she despised. A life she never chose. It didn't matter that she had vowed to ruin him. It didn't matter that fury burned hotter than fear. The truth was simple and devastating: she had sold her freedom to save her father's life. And at dawn, when the sun spilled weakly across the concrete skyline of a strange city, she understood something even worse. There was no turning back. No flowers. No aisle. No music. No vows of love or promise or hope. The ceremony took place in a cramped, wood-paneled room on the third floor of the Estrain County Courthouse, room 314, Civil Unions and Legal Partnerships. A brass plaque hung crookedly on the door, as if even it couldn't muster the strength to stand straight. Lena arrived in a simple cream dress, something she'd pulled from her closet without care. She had once pictured her wedding gown as something ethereal, lace brushing her skin like a dream. But today she wore a dress that wasn't meant for dreams. It was meant for survival. Adrian Vale was already there when she entered. He stood beside the judge's desk like a man closing a merger deal, not a groom. His charcoal suit was perfectly pressed, his stance firm, confident, infuriatingly composed. He didn't look up until the door clicked shut behind her. His eyes swept over her, quick, assessing, unreadable. No warmth. No anger. Just calculation. "Miss Ardent," he said with a polite incline of his head, as if greeting a business associate instead of a woman he was about to marry. Lena stiffened. "It's still Lena." "For a few more minutes," he replied. The judge, an older woman with tired eyes and a stack of files taller than her coffee thermos, barely glanced at them. "All right," she sighed, flipping through paperwork. "Lena Ardent. Adrian Vale. Legal union. Standard expedited terms. Are both parties consenting?" The words cracked like ice through the room. Lena's heart slammed painfully once, then steadied. She forced her chin up. "I consent," she said, though every syllable tasted like swallowed pride. The judge turned to Adrian. "And you?" He didn't look at Lena. He didn't need to. His answer was effortless. "I do." The judge nodded, rubber-stamped several documents, and read a few lines of legal text that sounded like the death knell of Lena's old life. No poetry. No sentiment. Just signatures. When the pen touched her hand, Lena hesitated for a single heartbeat, long enough to feel the last fragments of her old self slipping away, then she signed. Adrian added his signature below hers, swift and precise. The judge snapped the folder shut. "Congratulations. You're married." And that was it. No applause. No kiss. Just a sentence said by a woman who had already moved on to the next file. A photographer hired by Helix Medical Group waited outside the door, camera at the ready. Adrian turned to Lena, offering his arm like a gentleman carved from ice. "Smile," he murmured, his tone low enough only she could hear. "The world is watching." Lena wanted to smack the smirk off his face. Instead, she placed her hand on his arm and tilted her head just so, crafting the perfect illusion of a blissful bride. Camera flashes exploded. Her cheeks hurt from pretending. Within an hour, their wedding photo was plastered across every major news site. Powerhouse union shocks Estrain City, Helix CEO marries ardent heiress, corporate rivals turn lovers. Vale, ardent marriage stuns industry, romance or strategy? Experts debate sudden union. Lena's stomach churned reading the headlines. Adrian seemed immune. He penned his signature smile, polished, charming, untouchable, while guiding her past reporters who fired questions like bullets. "Is this a merger of love or business? Ms. Ardent, when did you and Dr. Vale fall in love? Dr. Vale, is this marriage a sign of Helix and ardent reconciliation?" Lena's throat tightened. She opened her mouth, searching for a neutral answer, but Adrian beat her to it. He slid an arm around her waist, pulling her gently but firmly into his side. "We don't owe the world our private story," he told the camera smoothly. "What matters is that we're happy, and ready for the future." There was a split second, a flicker of heat where his hand rested on her waist, that felt too real, too intimate. She shoved the thought aside. Everything he did was calculated. Including this. The ride to his home was silent. Adrian drove himself, no chauffeur, no entourage. The luxury sedan glided through the busy streets until they rose higher, farther from the city center, toward a private road guarded by a steel gate. Helix Estate appeared like a modern fortress carved from glass and steel, sharp lines, cold surfaces, immaculate landscaping. The kind of place built not for comfort, but for dominance. Lena stared through the windshield, pulse quickening. "This is your home?" she asked slowly. "This is where we'll reside," Adrian corrected. "But as I mentioned before, the estate has separate wings. You will stay in the east. And you in the west," she finished, the words tasting bitter. He didn't confirm or deny, simply parked in front of towering double doors that opened automatically as they approached. Inside, the mansion was vast. Sleek. Sterile. Like a museum, Lena murmured before she could stop herself. Adrian glanced at her. "Is that a problem?" "No," she replied, though the truth was yes. Everything about this place felt wrong, too quiet, too polished, too lifeless. A cage disguised as a palace. He walked ahead, his footsteps echoing on marble floors. "You'll have full access to the household staff," he said. "If you need anything, clothes, amenities, personal items, they will acquire it. Your schedule remains your own. I won't interfere." Lena's jaw clenched. "Of course you won't," she muttered. He paused, turning slightly. "What was that?" "Nothing." He let it go, resuming the tour through halls lined with abstract art and glass sculptures bathed in cold, white light. The estate was beautiful, yes. But it had no soul. Like its owner. When they reached the east wing, Adrian stopped in front of a set of elegant white doors. "This is your suite," he said. "Bedroom, study, lounge, private balcony. Fully staffed. If there's anything you require, inform Mrs. Duval. She manages the household." Lena stepped inside. The suite was enormous, larger than her family's entire townhouse, but every inch felt curated, untouched, clinical. Beautiful but hollow. A showpiece, not a home. She traced a hand over the smooth marble counter, feeling its coldness seep into her skin. Behind her, Adrian lingered at the door. "You look disappointed." She turned, startled. "Should I be grateful?" she asked, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Adrian's expression didn't shift. "Gratitude isn't required." "Then what is required?" A beat of silence. "Cooperation," he replied finally. "And discretion." Lena's laugh was dry. "Of course. Wouldn't want the trophy wife to embarrass the CEO." Adrian's jaw tightened, a reaction, small but noticeable. She filed it away. He wasn't as impenetrable as he wanted her to believe. After Adrian left, Lena collapsed onto the pristine white sofa, burying her face in her hands. The weight of the day pressed down on her chest, heavy, suffocating. She was married. Married to a man she should despise. Living in a palace built from the ruins of her father's company. And yet the world believed she was the luckiest woman alive. A knock sounded at the door. A housekeeper entered quietly. "Mrs. Vale, I brought refreshments. Would you prefer tea?" "Or, please don't call me that," Lena cut in softly. The woman blinked. "Ma'am?" "Mrs. Vale," Lena repeated bitterly. "It doesn't feel real." The housekeeper's expression softened. "If you need anything, I'm here. Just ring." When she left, Lena walked to the balcony. From there, the entire city of Estrane stretched beneath her like a glittering grid. She pressed her forehead against the glass. Not a view. A reminder. She was trapped. Night fell quickly, draping Helix Estate in deep blue shadows. Lights illuminated the hallways as if the house itself refused the comfort of darkness. Lena wandered aimlessly, restless, angry, suffocating. She ended up in the main hallway just as Adrian exited his office. He paused when he saw her, brow slightly raised. "Is something wrong?" "No," she said automatically. Then, unable to help herself, "Why did you choose this? Why marry me?" Adrian regarded her for a long moment. "You want honesty?" "I want something," she snapped. He took a slow breath. "Your family's downfall was inevitable. Helix merely accelerated the process. But your father's condition changed the equation. You needed help. I was in a position to provide it." And, his eyes narrowed, unreadable. "You had value to me. Strategic value." Lena felt her heart pinch. Somehow the truth hurt more than any lie. "A transactional marriage, then," she said quietly. "Yes. And what about the rest of the world? What about the fantasy romance you just fed the press?" His voice turned cool. "The public believes what they're shown. A stable, united marriage benefits both our reputations." She stared at him, pulse thundering. "You really feel nothing?" she whispered. His eyes flickered, something like a crack. But it vanished almost instantly. What I feel, he said without emotion, is irrelevant. Not to me. A beat. Silence so tense it hummed. Then Adrian stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. You will maintain our public image, he said softly but firmly. In return, your father will receive the best care in the country. You have my guarantee. Lena's breath hitched. It wasn't a threat, not exactly. But it wasn't a kindness either. It was a reminder of their contract. Their prison. Finally, Adrian straightened, turning away. Good night, Lena. His footsteps echoed down the hall until he disappeared entirely, leaving her standing alone in the cold glow of the mansion's lights. She wrapped her arms around herself, teeth clenched to hold back the tremor in her chest. So this was her new life. Not a fairy tale. Not even a tragedy. Just a gilded cage, with a man made of glass walls and steel bones guarding the door. But Lena Ardent wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She looked toward the west wing, where Adrian had vanished. Keep your image clean, he had said. And your family will be cared for. She repeated his words under her breath, but her voice carried something he didn't expect. A promise. A warning. A spark of rebellion. One day, Adrian Vale, she whispered to the empty hall, you'll regret chaining your life to mine. And somewhere deep inside the mansion, as if the walls themselves were listening, something shifted. The story had just begun. That night, long after Adrian's footsteps had faded into the west wing, Lena lay awake in her enormous bed staring at the ceiling painted in soft gold. The silence inside Helix Estate was unnerving, not peaceful, but watchful. As if every wall waited to see what she would do next. She didn't know what she feared more, the man she had married, or the secrets he was hiding. Either way, sunrise felt impossibly far. The knock came just past 11. 3 sharp taps. Not loud, but deliberate. Lena sat up, spine rigid. For a moment she considered ignoring it, pretending sleep, pretending she had any control left. But then she heard his voice, low, steady, unmistakably Adrian. Lena. Open the door. Her heartbeat skittered. This was it, wasn't it? The part she'd been dreading. The part everyone would assume was inevitable when a woman married a man like him under circumstances like these. Gathering her courage, she crossed the room and opened the door a narrow inch. Adrian stood on the threshold, still in his tailored vest, tie loosened slightly, expression carved from marble. But there was no hunger in his eyes. No cruelty. Just a deep, unreadable focus. May I come in? He asked. She hesitated before stepping aside. Why? You and I, Adrian said calmly, need to speak. Not what she expected, but somehow more unsettling. He closed the door behind him and turned to face her. Lena wrapped her arms around herself, bracing. If you're here to collect what you think you're owed, she said quietly, get on with it. Adrian's jaw tightened. Is that truly what you think of me? What else should I think? She snapped. You bought my family. You bought me. His eyes flashed, just once. Sit down, Lena. No, his voice dropped, steady and controlled. I'm not here to touch you. I'm here because I need to confirm something. She faltered. Confirm, what? Adrian stepped closer, not invading, but close enough that she could see tension lined along his shoulders. Take off your robe. Her breath caught. No, she backed up a step. I told you, I'm not asking for intimacy, he said firmly. I need to see your left shoulder. There's something I must verify. Lena froze, confusion replacing fear. My shoulder? Yes. Her mind raced. Why her shoulder? Why something so oddly specific? When she didn't move, Adrian's voice softened, not gentle, but less sharp. Lena, if I intended to harm you, I wouldn't need permission. That brutal honesty stole her defiance. Hands trembling slightly, she slipped the robe from her left shoulder. A faint silvery mark, one she hardly remembered, caught the lamplight. Adrian inhaled sharply. That, he whispered, I prayed I would never see again. Lena blinked, bewildered. It's just an old mark. I got it as a kid. My father said, your father lied. The words hit harder than a shout. Adrian stepped closer, studying the scar with a mixture of anger and something darker, pain, maybe. That mark, he said quietly, is from Aquilin trials. Lena frowned. Aquilin? The drug from years ago? I don't understand. You wouldn't, he said. Because Victor Ardent ensured you wouldn't. His voice carried no malice, only truth sharpened to a blade. 15 years ago, Ardent Pharma ran a secret clinical trial for a heart medication called Aquilin. They pushed it through early phases without proper oversight. The drug had a flaw, a catastrophic one. It caused acute vascular collapse in a small percentage of test participants. Lena's blood ran cold. My father would never, he did, Adrian cut in. And he hid it. Buried the data. Paid off regulators. Silenced survivors. Survivors. She looked down at her scar, feeling suddenly sick. I was in that trial, she whispered. Yes, Adrian said. You were one of the youngest subjects. Those scars were injection sites from the early experimental doses. The trial left you with a mild but permanent vascular sensitivity. That's why your reaction to stress is more severe than most people's. Her knees weakened. She sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at the mark as if it were a stranger carved into her skin. My father never told me, she said, voice breaking. Of course he didn't, Adrian replied softly. He loved you. But he also chose his reputation over the truth. She looked up. And you? What does this have to do with you? Adrian's expression shifted, colder, but wounded in a way she hadn't seen. My mentor, Dr. Ellis Finch, the man who taught me everything, the closest thing I ever had to a father, was one of the lead physicians on the Aquilon project. When he discovered the buried data, he tried to expose it. Lena swallowed hard. What happened? Adrian's jaw clenched. He died. Accidentally. Officially, it was stress-induced heart failure. Unofficially, Victor Ardent destroyed the one man who believed in me. Her breath caught. I'm sorry. It came out barely audible. Adrian shook his head. Don't apologize. None of this was your fault. In fact, your existence may be the only thing that can stop what's coming next. What's coming? His eyes darkened. Marcus Renfield. He's resurrecting Aquilon under a new name. He's hiding the same risks, pushing for emergency approval, aiming to make billions. And he will succeed, unless someone exposes the original trial. But the data, destroyed, Adrian said. All except one thing. A survivor. Lena froze. No, she whispered. Yes. You're saying, you married me because I'm evidence? Adrian exhaled slowly. I married you because Renfield will do anything, to silence the truth. With you under my protection, he can't touch you. And with you, I can prove everything he's hiding. The room felt impossibly small. Her heart hammered painfully inside her chest. So that's all I am, she asked, voice raw. A piece of evidence? Adrian stepped forward, stopping just inches from her, his voice low and unapologetically honest. Lena, you are many things. A survivor. A threat to powerful men. The one person who can bring down a monster. His gaze locked onto hers, steady and unwavering. But understand this, he said softly, deliberately. You were never a trophy. Never a prize. You're the key. The words lingered between them, heavy, electric, irrevocable, as the weight of the truth settled on her shoulders. And for the first time since the day her world fell apart, Lena realized her life wasn't ending. It was just beginning. Lena barely slept after hearing the truth. Adrian's words replayed in her mind like an echo she couldn't silence. You're the key. Not a pawn. Not collateral. A key. But even if she believed him, even if part of her wanted to, there remained a heavy, unspoken truth between them. She didn't trust him. Not yet. And still, when morning came, she found herself walking toward his office in the West Wing, driven by a strange mix of anger, fear, and a reluctant curiosity she couldn't fully name. Adrian's office was nothing like the cold marble halls of Helix Estate. The door was slightly ajar, warm morning light spilling through. Inside, the air carried the quiet hum of concentration. He was already at his desk, sleeves rolled to his elbows, papers spread out in organized chaos. His eyes lifted the moment she stepped inside. You came, he said simply. I said I would help, Lena replied. You made it clear I don't have much choice. Adrian leaned back slightly. You do. More than you think. She ignored the statement and walked toward the table where several thick folders lay. What do you need from me? He gestured to a seat beside him, not across from him, but next to him. Close. We need to reconstruct the Aquilon trial timeline from scratch, he explained. Dates, physicians, trial batches, patient reactions. Anything you might remember from childhood could help. Lena sat, trying to steady her breath. Memories of hospitals, needles, and bright lights flashed in her mind, things she had always dismissed as childhood illness. Show me what you have, she said quietly. Adrian slid a file toward her. Start with this. She opened it, and froze. The top page wasn't data. It was a photo. A man with kind eyes, half smiling as if holding back a laugh. Beneath it, Dr. Ellis Finch, in loving memory. Lena's throat tightened. It wasn't the cold, ruthless documentation she expected. It was a memorial. You kept this, she asked softly. Adrian's jaw worked once before he answered. He was the closest thing I had to family. Lena looked at the photo again, then at the small handwritten note clipped to the corner, for the ones we couldn't save. Her chest ached. This must have been hard for you. Adrian didn't respond immediately. When he finally did, his voice carried an edge she hadn't heard before, raw, unguarded. Losing him wasn't the hardest part, he said. The hardest part was knowing the truth died with him. The hardest part was watching the man who buried it walk free. My father, Lena whispered. Yes. But he didn't say it with hatred. He said it with grief. Something shifted in her then, not forgiveness, not understanding, but a small crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. For the next hour, they worked in near silence. Lena studied medical notes she barely recognized, and Adrian filled in the pieces with clinical precision. But the silence wasn't cold. It was the quiet of two people trying, awkwardly, reluctantly, to understand each other. At one point, Lena caught him watching her, not with judgment, but with something like concern. Are you okay? He asked. She blinked, startled. Why do you care? He didn't flinch. Because you're reliving something traumatic. And because, he hesitated, almost imperceptibly. I know what it feels like to have your past rewritten against your will. She looked down quickly, afraid he'd see too much in her eyes. And because you need me, she forced out. Adrian didn't deny it. But his next words surprised her. It's not just that. Her heart stumbled. She didn't ask him to explain. She wasn't sure she could handle the answer. Eventually, Lena stood to stretch her aching shoulders. As she did, a second file slid loose from Adrian's stack and fell to the floor. When she bent to pick it up, a small photograph slipped out. It was Adrian, years younger, standing beside Dr. Finch in a lab. Adrian looked different then, brighter, less guarded, almost hopeful. The kind of man who believed in possibilities. The kind of man she never imagined he'd been. You were close to him, Lena said softly, returning the photo. Adrian took it gently, his fingers brushing hers. A brief spark shot up her arm, startling her. He gave me a reason to believe in medicine, he said, not meeting her eyes. And he believed Aquilin could change lives, until he saw what it did instead. Lena exhaled slowly. And you think Renfield will repeat the same mistake? No, Adrian said, his voice turning sharp again. Renfield knows exactly what he's doing. He doesn't care about medicine. He cares about power. Lena nodded, her chest heavy. So we stop him. Adrian's eyes softened, just a fraction. We do. Hours passed. Notes were written. Memories resurfaced. Piece by piece, they rebuilt a truth long buried. But beneath the work, something else simmered quietly between them. Every time their fingers brushed over a file. Every time she caught him looking at her with something almost human. Every time she realized he wasn't the monster she'd painted in her mind. Something was shifting. Dangerously. Unavoidably. At one point, Lena leaned over the desk to grab a paper, her shoulder brushing Adrian's arm. He stilled, not pulling away, but as if anchoring himself. Sorry, she murmured. You don't have to apologize for touching me, he said softly. Her breath hitched. That's not what I know, he said. But he didn't move. The air between them thickened, charged with something neither of them dared name. As dusk draped the estate in warm shadow, Adrian finally closed one of the files. That's enough for today, he said. Lena rubbed her eyes. We barely made a dent. You did more than you realize. When she stood to leave, he spoke again, quieter this time. Lena. She paused. What? Adrian's gaze held hers, steady, unreadable, but softer than she'd ever seen. This partnership between us, he said carefully, doesn't have to be war. Lena's pulse fluttered. I don't know what it is, she admitted. But it's not peace. No, he agreed. Not yet. A beat passed. Something unsaid lingered there, fragile, tentative. Then he stepped back, letting her go. Good night, he said. She nodded, walking toward the door, heart pounding for reasons she didn't want to examine. But before she left, she glanced over her shoulder. Adrian was still watching her. This time not as a CEO, not as a strategist, but as a man caught between guilt, purpose, and something dangerously close to longing. And Lena knew, deep in the place she tried hardest to ignore, this cooperation would change everything. Even them. The following days unfolded with a strange, fragile rhythm. Lena and Adrian worked together in the daylight, still wary, still guarded, but no longer locked in silent battle. Something had shifted, subtle but undeniable. Yet cooperation did not mean comfort. And as the week drew to a close, a new challenge waited for Lena, one far more daunting than analyzing files or confronting truth. Adrian's family. Adrian appeared in Lena's doorway just after noon, a formal envelope in hand. His posture was composed, but something in his jaw suggested reluctance. My mother has requested our presence for dinner tonight, he said. Lena blinked. Requested? She phrased it as such, Adrian replied dryly. But you should interpret it as mandatory. Of course, Lena murmured. Wouldn't want to disrespect the matriarch. He studied her for a moment, as if weighing something unspoken. She can be direct, he said finally. Don't let her unsettle you. Lena lifted her chin. I've survived much worse than a dinner table interrogation. Adrian's lips twitched, almost a smile, quickly restrained. Then you'll be fine. But beneath his composed exterior, a tension vibrated. As if even he wasn't entirely certain how this evening would end. That evening, a black car carried them across a strange upscale district until they reached the Vale residence, a mansion older than Helix Estate, draped in ivy, its windows glowing with warm golden light. It radiated old money, old traditions, and old expectations. Inside, a butler greeted them and led them to a long dining hall adorned with crystal chandeliers and a table set for royalty. At its head sat Adriana Vale. Her presence commanded the room instantly, poised, elegant, eyes sharp enough to cut stone. She rose when they entered, her expression composed but inscrutable. "Adrian," she said, kissing her son's cheek. Then she turned to Lena, eyes sweeping over her like a silent assessment. "So, this is the woman who has captured the attention of my son." "Captured?" Lena nearly laughed. Adrian stepped forward smoothly. "Mother, this is Lena. My wife." Adriana's smile was polite yet cool. "We'll see if the title fits." Lena met the older woman's gaze without flinching. "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Vale." "Please," Adriana said, gesturing toward the table. "Sit. Let's see what kind of woman my son has brought into this family." Adrian shot his mother a warning look, but she waved it away as if brushing off dust. The battle had begun. Course after course arrived, perfectly plated, exquisitely crafted, and with each one came a new question, each sharper than the last. "Tell me, Lena," Adriana began as servants poured wine. "What exactly do you contribute to this marriage? Beauty, I assume, but what else?" Lena held her glass carefully, her posture calm. "Well, Mrs. Vale, I suppose the same things your son contributes." She offered a hint of a smile. "A sharp mind, a strong will, and the ability to survive very uncomfortable rooms." Adrian stared at her, stunned for half a second. Adriana's eyebrow arched. "Clever tongue." "Only when necessary," Lena replied. "I find honesty works better." "And what is your honest intention with my son?" Adriana asked. "Love? Security? Influence?" Lena didn't look away. "I intend to stand beside him. Not behind him. Not beneath him. Beside him." A flicker, so brief it could have been imagined, crossed Adriana's eyes. Approval? Respect? She hit it well. "So you believe you're his equal," she said. "I don't need to believe it," Lena answered softly. "I know it." Adrian's breath caught. Something warm, dangerous, and unexpected stirred inside him. Halfway through the meal, Adriana switched tactics. "Your family's downfall was dramatic," she said casually, swirling her wine. "Do you fear that misfortune will follow you into this home?" Lena placed her fork down deliberately. "My father made mistakes. I won't make the same ones." "And what mistakes were those?" Lena met her gaze steadily. "Trusting the wrong people. Underestimating the consequences of silence. And believing reputation mattered more than truth." Adrian's eyes flickered, surprised by her candor. Adriana leaned forward slightly. "And what have you learned?" "That transparency is not weakness," Lena replied. "And loyalty means nothing without accountability." Silence fell across the table. A charged silence. Finally, Adriana exhaled slowly. "Well said." It wasn't praise. But it wasn't dismissal either. When the meal ended, Adriana stood and dismissed the servants. "Adrian, speak with me in the study." Before he could move, Lena stepped forward. "If this concerns me, I would prefer to be present." Adrian froze, shocked by her boldness. Adriana turned slowly. "And why should I allow that?" Lena's voice was gentle but firm. "Because transparency, as I said, is not weakness." Another silence. Then, unexpectedly, Adriana's lips curved. "Very well." In the study, lined with old books and family portraits, Adriana folded her hands behind her back. "I challenged you tonight, Lena. And you held your ground with grace, intelligence, and restraint." She paused. "Qualities my son rarely finds in people." Lena blinked. "Thank you." Adriana nodded once, then looked at her son. "You chose well, Adrian. Whether intentionally or not." Lena's breath stuttered. Adrian's heartbeat thundered. His mother stepped closer to Lena, lowering her voice. "Do not disappoint him. And do not let him disappoint you." With that, she left the room. The door clicked softly behind her. For a long moment, Lena and Adrian stood alone in the quiet study. "You handled her better than anyone I've ever seen," Adrian said finally. His voice was low, almost reverent. "Including me." Lena let out a small breath. "I wasn't trying to impress her." "I know." He stepped closer, the distance shrinking. "That's what impressed her." And him. More than he'd ever admit aloud. Lena looked up, their eyes locking in a way that shook something loose inside him, something he had kept controlled for years. Tonight was about survival, she said. Tonight, Adrian murmured, was the first time I saw what you're truly capable of. Heat rippled subtly between them. Respect. Recognition. Something more, something neither dared name. Lena swallowed. So, did I pass her test? Adrian's expression softened, rare, unguarded. You didn't just pass, he said quietly. You changed the game. And in that moment, both of them knew, something important had shifted. Not just in his mother's eyes, but between them. After the dinner at the Vale residence, something unspoken lingered between Lena and Adrian. A quiet thread of respect. A shift in gravity neither of them dared acknowledge. But the world outside their fragile truce wasn't interested in giving them time to understand it. Especially not the world Adrian lived in, one full of power, scrutiny, and eyes that noticed everything. The annual Australian General Charity Gala was the kind of event the elite treated like a performance, the gowns, the cameras, the speeches dripping with polished sincerity. Lena arrived beside Adrian, her hand tucked loosely into the crook of his arm. She wore a deep midnight blue gown, simple but stunning, and she carried herself with a confidence that turned heads as they walked in. She looks incredible, someone whispered. She's the ardent girl, isn't she? And Vale's wife, Adrian heard it all. He didn't care. His gaze was fixed on her, too often, more than he should have allowed. And she felt it. She always did. But just as they reached the center of the ballroom, a familiar voice called out behind her. Lena? Lena Ardent, is that really you? She turned, eyes widening. Ben? Dr. Ben Marlowe, tall, warm smile, golden brown hair a little too unruly for a black tie event, approached with open arms. He had been her classmate in a health policy program years ago, and one of the few people who made those exhausting months bearable. She hugged him lightly. It's been forever. Adrian's jaw tightened instantly. Ben stepped back, looking her up and down with genuine delight. You look incredible. I didn't even know you were back in the city. I thought you'd moved to the East Coast after, well, everything. Lena laughed softly. Life got complicated. And you're married now? Ben teased gently. I thought I would have heard the sirens. She smiled, bright in a way Adrian had never seen directed at him. Yeah. It happened unexpectedly. Ben grinned. Well, lucky guy, whoever he is. Adrian stepped forward, voice smooth but cool. I'm whoever he is. Ben blinked. Dr. Vale. Oh. Wow. Didn't expect, congratulations, both of you. Lena didn't notice Adrian's expression yet. She was too busy catching up, laughing at small memories, warmth in her voice that even the orchestra's music couldn't soften. But Adrian noticed everything. Every look Ben gave her. Every smile she returned. And something unwelcomed, unfamiliar, coiled tight in his chest. Jealousy. When Lena excused herself to thank donors, Adrian intercepted her, his voice low. You seem close with Dr. Marlowe. She blinked. Ben? He's an old friend. He looked at you like he wanted more than friendship. Lena crossed her arms. What exactly are you implying? I'm not implying anything, he said, though the tension in his voice said otherwise. I'm stating a fact. I didn't realize talking to someone made me unfaithful, she snapped. Adrian's eyes flashed. That's not what I said. No, Lena said sharply. You insinuated it. Ben waved from across the room. Lena waved back. Adrian exhaled through his nose, frustration simmering. Lena, we have a public image to maintain. Oh, here we go, she muttered. The image. The perfect couple we pretend to be. Lena, save it, she said, stepping away. I'm not doing this here. But they did do it. Because the moment they returned to Helix Estate, everything detonated. The doors had barely shut behind them before Lena whirled around. You don't own me, Adrian. His eyes burned. I never said I did. You acted like it. I acted like your husband, he shot back. At a public event where people were watching us, Ben wasn't people. He was my friend. You were laughing with him like what? She challenged. Like I was allowed to have a connection outside. Of you? He hesitated, dangerous, revealing. Lena's breath hitched. Oh my God. You're jealous. He froze. No, he said too quickly. Yes, she whispered, stepping closer. You are. Adrian's pulse thudded visibly at his throat. I don't get jealous, he said, voice low, shaky in a way she'd never heard. Then what was tonight? She asked softly. Because it felt a lot like jealousy. He took a step toward her. She backed up. He followed. Lena, Adrian said, seeing you with him, with someone who cares about me, she interrupted. With someone who doesn't know you, he corrected, his voice roughening. Not the way I do. Her breath caught. And how is that? She whispered. He stopped inches from her, his words quiet but burning. I know how you breathe when you're angry. I know how your voice changes when you're hurt. I know when you're pretending to be fine. I know when you're not. I know when something matters to you, long before you admit it. Heat curled low in Lena's stomach. And what about you, she whispered. What do you feel, Adrian? His chest rose sharply. He reached for her, slow, hesitant, almost reverent, as if touching her would cross a line he wasn't ready to admit he wanted to cross. Her breath trembled. Their faces were inches apart. His hand hovered at her jaw, not quite touching. The air crackled, tense and electric. Lena, he murmured. Adrian, she leaned in without meaning to. He did too. Their lips brushed, a shrill alarm exploded through the mansion. The fire alarm. Lena jumped back. Adrian swore under his breath, raking a hand through his hair as red lights strobed along the ceiling. It's a false trigger, he muttered. This building is too sensitive. But the moment was gone, shattered. And neither dared pick up where they left off. For the next 2 days, they barely crossed paths in the estate, both hiding behind work and obligations. When they did pass each other in the halls, their eyes met briefly before skittering away. The tension was too sharp. The memory too vivid. The almost kiss too dangerous. Lena couldn't stop thinking about how close he'd been. How gentle his voice had turned. How her heart had betrayed her. Adrian couldn't stop thinking about the fear in his own chest, fear of wanting something he shouldn't want. They weren't ready. Not yet. And so they avoided each other, as if distance could tame whatever had sparked to life between them. But it was too late. Something had already changed. Something neither of them could undo. For 2 days, Helix Estate felt like a vast frozen continent, cold hallways, closed doors, tension pulsing in every silent room. Lena kept replaying the almost kiss in her mind, hating how her heart leapt every time she did. Adrian avoided her with equal intensity, burying himself in work, but his absence was louder than his presence had ever been. This distance was safer. Necessary. But unbearable. Especially when both of them knew exactly what was being avoided. On the 3rd morning, Lena made her decision. She couldn't keep living in this limbo, married but untouched, needed but unwanted, desired but denied. The uncertainty was eating her alive. She packed a small suitcase. Just enough for a few days, time away to think, to breathe, to let her heart settle down. She didn't know where she would go, she just knew she had to put space between herself and the man who was slowly unmaking her. When she stepped into the hallway, suitcase in hand, she didn't expect to find Adrian standing at the far end, still in yesterday's shirt, hair slightly disheveled, exhaustion darkening his eyes. He froze the moment he saw her. Where are you going? His voice was quiet, calm, too calm. Lena lifted her chin. I need space. Adrian took a slow step forward. From what? From this, she said, gesturing vaguely between them. From whatever we're pretending this marriage is. I can't keep walking around wondering where I stand with you, wondering what you feel or don't feel. It's exhausting. He stared at her, expression unreadable. I didn't realize you needed clarity, he said. Of course I do, Adrian, Lena whispered. Because I don't know what we are anymore. He inhaled sharply, something cracking inside him. Then he stepped closer, another, and another, until he stood right in front of her, blocking the exit. Put the suitcase down, he said softly. Adrian, please. The word stunned her. He had never said please before. Not once. Her fingers loosened involuntarily. The suitcase slipped to the floor with a dull thud. Adrian exhaled shakily, as if he'd been holding his breath for days. Lena, he said, voice low, you think I've been avoiding you because I don't care? Hurt flickered through her eyes. Haven't you? No, he murmured. I've been avoiding you because I care too much. Her breath faltered. Adrian closed his eyes for a brief second, gathering himself, then opened them again, raw, unguarded, vulnerable in a way she had never seen. I lost control the other night, he said quietly. So did I, she whispered. He shook his head. You don't understand. I've spent my entire life controlling everything, my emotions, my work, my future. But when I saw you with Ben, I felt something I wasn't prepared for. Lena's heart pounded. Jealousy? Fear, Adrian corrected, voice breaking slightly. Fear that someone else could make you smile the way I've been too afraid to. Her throat tightened. Adrian, I pushed you away, he continued, stepping even closer, not because I didn't want you, but because I wanted you far too much. And I didn't know how to handle it. The words hit her like warm rain after a long winter. He swallowed hard. Lena, I didn't want this marriage. I didn't want a wife. But then you walked into my life and tore every plan I had to pieces. Her eyes glistened. You're saying all this because you feel guilty. No, Adrian's voice deepened. I'm saying this because it's the truth. He lifted a trembling hand to her cheek but stopped an inch away, as if waiting for permission. Tell me to stop, he whispered, and I will. Lena didn't move. Adrian's breath stuttered. I've lost sleep, lost focus, lost every bit of detachment I've tried to maintain. And it terrifies me. She leaned in the smallest bit, her voice barely audible. Why? His answer came. Like a confession ripped from the depths of him. Because I'm in love with you, Lena. A breath. A tremor. A truth that broke both of them open. And I don't know how to stop. The world went still. Lena felt her knees weaken. Say it again. Adrian stepped forward, placing his hand fully against her cheek now, thumb brushing her skin with exquisite tenderness. I love you, he repeated, voice rough with emotion. I've fought it, denied it, tried to outrun it, but I can't. I love you. Tears gathered in her eyes, relief, disbelief, a fierce burst of something that had been building for weeks. I wanted to leave, she whispered, because I couldn't stand wanting someone who kept running from me. Adrian's hand slid gently to the back of her neck, pulling her closer. I'm done running, he murmured. I'm right here. She exhaled shakily. And I'm done pretending I don't feel it. Adrian. I love you too. A sound escaped him, half groan, half prayer, as he pulled her fully into his arms. His forehead pressed to hers, breaths mingling, hearts racing. Lena, he whispered, voice trembling, please, let me show you what I feel. She nodded, her hands gripping his shirt. Then he kissed her. Not tentative. Not hesitant. But with all the emotion he'd tried to bury. All the longing she'd tried to deny. All the truth that had finally burst free. Her fingers slid into his hair. His arms wrapped around her waist. The kiss deepened, softened, then deepened again, slow, consuming, breathtaking. This wasn't a contract. This wasn't an arrangement. This was real. Finally real. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Adrian searched her eyes as if terrified she might disappear. You're mine, he whispered, not because of a contract, but because you chose me. And you're mine, she whispered back, because your heart finally let me in. He smiled, a real, unguarded smile she'd never seen before. And just like that, the marriage that had begun as obligation became something fierce, fragile, and beautifully true. They were a couple now. A real one. A dangerous one. And nothing would ever be the same. After their confession, Lena and Adrian fell into a new rhythm, still intense, still complicated, but real. For the first time, the estate felt less like a gilded cage and more like a home. But peace has a way of attracting storms. And Marcus Renfield had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It happened on a Thursday morning. Victor Arden's nurse called Lena in a panic. He's demanding to speak with you, immediately. He's extremely distressed. Lena rushed to the hospital, Adrian right behind her. When they entered Victor's room, he was pale, trembling, eyes wild with fear. Get him away from me. Victor shouted the moment he saw Adrian. He's trying to kill me. Lena froze. Dad, what are you talking about? Victor pointed a shaking finger at Adrian. He came here yesterday. He threatened me. Said he would finish what you started in that lab years ago. Adrian stiffened. I have not left Helix Estate for 48 hours. He's lying. Victor cried. Lena grabbed her father's hands gently. Dad, look at me. Adrian didn't come here. Someone is manipulating you. But Victor recoiled, eyes wet with terror. Don't defend him, Lena. I heard it with my own ears. Lena's breath hitched. Your ears or a recording? Adrian stepped closer, voice calm, steady, the voice of a doctor who had pulled people back from panic 100 times. Mr. Ardent, he said softly, what you heard was fabricated. Someone is using my voice to attack your mind. I would never harm you. Victor shook his head, unconvinced. Lena whispered, Dad, who visited you before you heard the voice? Victor swallowed hard. Marcus Renfield. He said he wanted to check on my progress. Lena's eyes widened. Renfield was here? Adrian's jaw tightened dangerously. He planted the recording. He wanted you to fear me. To break us. Fear. Manipulation. Classic Renfield tactics. Adrian moved to Victor's bedside and gently placed 2 fingers on his wrist. Your pulse is high. Breathing shallow. You're experiencing induced paranoia, probably triggered by stress and cognitive load, he murmured, slipping seamlessly into doctor mode. Look at me. Match my breathing. Victor hesitated. Please, Adrian added quietly. For Lena. That was enough. Together, they breathed. Slow. Measured. Victor's panic eased. When calm finally settled, he looked at Adrian with confusion rather than fear. Why would he do this to me? Adrian answered with stark honesty. Because the truth you carry could destroy him. Victor's eyes darted to Lena. You told him? She nodded. Everything. Victor closed his eyes, exhaling a long, broken breath. Then stop him. Do what I couldn't. Adrian met Lena's gaze. We will. Back at Helix Estate, Lena and Adrian combed through old files, long dormant contracts, forgotten legal forms. Hours passed. Frustration mounted. Then Lena found it. A dusty, nearly illegible document clipped to the back of a regulatory binder, signed 15 years ago. Adrian, she whispered. Look at this. He read it once. Twice. His eyes widened. It's a conditional disclosure clause, he breathed. Victor signed it when the FDA demanded oversight after the first Aquilon incident. Lena scanned the lines. Any attempt to revive, rebrand, or redeploy the compound known as Aquilon will automatically reactivate dormant investigation files and trigger full public release of the original trial data. She looked up. Meaning? Adrian exhaled, stunned. If Renfield pushes Aquilon back into the market, he destroys himself. Lena's pulse raced. We don't need to expose him. He'll expose himself. Adrian nodded slowly. We just need him to admit he's launching it. And he will, Lena said softly, if he thinks he's winning. Renfield always operated from luxury, so they found him at the Highcrest Hotel, in a private conference suite overlooking the city. He smirked when they entered. Well, the lovebirds. To what do I owe the pleasure? Adrian stepped forward, cold and lethal. Drop the act. You manipulated Victor Ardent with a fabricated recording. Renfield leaned back. Proof. Lena tossed a flash drive onto the table. Security footage. You entering his room. Audio logs showing your voice splicing. Renfield's smile faltered. Adrian continued. Walking into a hospital under false credentials is a felony. And terrorizing a heart patient? Lena added. Attempted coercion. Medical interference. Shall I list more? Renfield laughed once, shaky. You two can't touch me. Aquilon will be the biggest pharmaceutical relaunch in a decade. And my investors will be thrilled, Adrian said smoothly, when your entire project triggers a federal data release. Renfield blinked. What are you talking about? Lena placed the old document in front of him. Read. He skimmed it. Then his face drained of color. No, this can't. This clause was buried, not buried enough, Adrian said. The moment you file for emergency trial approval, the FDA will unseal the original Aquilon data. Your deadly side effects. Your forged reports. Everything. Renfield stumbled back. You're bluffing. Adrian's voice dropped to a razor blade. Then test me. Silence. Suffocating. Total. Renfield's confidence crumbled. What do you want? Lena answered coldly. Shut it down. Dissolve the company. Leave the industry. Or? Renfield whispered. Adrian met Lena's gaze, then delivered the final blow. Or you'll spend the next 20 years explaining to federal prosecutors why you endangered countless lives. Renfield's hands shook. I'll withdraw. And the project? Lena demanded. Terminated. And the data? Adrian added. Renfield swallowed hard. Destroyed. I swear. Lena stepped forward, voice soft but deadly. Not destroyed. Archived. Legally. Permanently. Renfield nodded frantically. Yes. Whatever you want. It was over. Hours later, in the quiet of the car, Lena leaned back and exhaled shakily. It's done, she murmured. Adrian reached across the console and took her hand gently, threading his fingers through hers. You did that, he said softly. You found the clause. You saved everything. Lena smiled faintly. We did it. He lifted her hand to his lips, kissing it once, slow, reverent. I'm proud of you, he whispered. Her heart swelled, warm and full. Marcus Renfield was gone. The danger had passed. Aquilon was dead forever. And the two of them, once enemies, then uneasy partners, had just won their first battle as a real couple. Together. In the weeks after Renfield's downfall, Lena and Adrian finally lived without crisis hanging over their heads. No threats. No manipulations. No shadows from the past waiting to crush them. For the first time since their marriage began, life felt peaceful. And in that peace, love grew easily, softly, like something finally allowed to breathe. But Adrian Vale had one last surprise. One that would change everything again. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Lena sat curled on the couch in the east wing reading, sunlight spilling warm across her lap, when Adrian appeared in the doorway, hands behind his back, expression unreadable. Lena, he said softly, can you come with me? There's something I want to show you. She smiled, setting her book aside. Of course. He led her down the hallway into his study, but instead of stopping at his desk, he turned toward the small seating area by the window. A folder rested on the table. Her pulse quickened. Is this, she hesitated. Are those divorce papers? Adrian blinked, shocked. Divorce? He stepped closer. Lena, no. God, no. He picked up the folder and placed it gently in her hands. Open it, he murmured. She did. The first page bore a title in elegant, bold lettering, Finch, Ardent Foundation for Ethical Medical Research Founders, Dr. Adrian Vale and Lena Ardent Vale. Her breath caught. This is, a partnership, Adrian finished softly. A real one. She looked up, eyes wide, glimmering. I don't understand. You already run Helix. Why? Because Finch deserved truth, Adrian said. And Aquilin deserved justice. His voice softened. And because you deserve to build something that isn't born from trauma, but from purpose. Her fingers trembled over the page. You want me to co-found this with you? No, he said, stepping closer. I want us to build it together. As equals. As partners. He paused, voice dropping to a whisper. As a family. Her heart stuttered. And then Adrian did something she had never expected, something that stole her breath. He sank down on one knee. Lena Ardent, he said, taking her hands, our first marriage was a transaction. A cage. A desperate attempt to save a life. She felt tears gather instantly. But this, his thumb brushed her knuckles tenderly. This is the marriage I'm asking for from my heart, not my strategy. Her breath shook. Adrian continued, voice deep and steady. I love you. I choose you. Not because of your past, not because of what you survived, not because of what we've been through, but because every day with you feels like a life I didn't know I was allowed to have. A tear escaped down her cheek. He tightened his hold on her hands. Marry me, Lena. Not for your father. Not for protection. Not for the image. Marry me because we're in love. Because we've fought for this. Because we've earned this. Her voice trembled. Adrian, say yes, he whispered. Let me marry you again, this time for all the right reasons. Lena's answer broke into a laugh and a sob all at once. Yes, she breathed. 1,000 times yes. He pulled her into his arms, and she kissed him, slow, deep, full of everything they had overcome. It wasn't a beginning. It was a rebirth. The second ceremony was nothing like the first. No cameras. No reporters. No cold courthouse. Just a small garden behind Helix Estate, warm with candlelight and early spring blossoms. A handful of people who mattered, Victor, Adriana, a few close colleagues who knew the truth. Lena wore a simple ivory gown. Adrian wore a soft, open smile he didn't bother hiding. When they exchanged vows, it wasn't legal jargon. It was love. It was hope. It was them. Adrian brushed his forehead against hers as he whispered, no more contracts, Lena. Only promises. And she whispered back, no more fear. Only us. Their kiss sealed a future. Neither of them had dared dream months before. Spring returned to a strange city. The Finch, Ardent Foundation flourished, gaining respect across the medical world. Adrian was often seen presenting research with Lena right beside him, no longer the woman he saved, but the woman who saved him just as much. And then, one morning, Lena held out a small envelope with trembling fingers. Adrian, he opened it. Stared. Then looked up, eyes wide and stunned and overflowing with emotion. We're? She nodded, tears glittering. We're having a baby. Adrian pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her neck, voice breaking. I love you, he whispered. I love both of you. As his hand slid over her stomach, a familiar sensitivity prickled beneath her skin, the faint mark of a scar she had once hated, once feared. The Aquilin scar. Once a symbol of pain. Now the quiet reason she met Adrian. The reason she survived. The reason she was exactly where she needed to be. She touched it gently and whispered, it brought me to you. Adrian kissed her temple. It brought us home. In the soft glow of the garden, Lena stood with Adrian's arms around her, the future blooming quietly inside her, and she understood something with absolute clarity. Some wounds aren't meant to break us. Some wounds lead us exactly where we belong. There are scars, she murmured, that guide us home.